There
right.
you go. There's that handsome gentleman. It
He
looks
looks a lot
just like you. Yeah.
actually got that headshot at Oracle's Cloud World. They were doing free headshots there.
I
Yep,
will say the lighting's great. You did update that recently, so they did a good job of that.
yep. So I am in charge of the database managed services team here. I personally have been a DBA for practicing DBA for 11 years. I'm certified in many databases: SQL Server, Oracle, PostgreSQL, and a whole bunch of other ones. I actually started my technical life in a long time ago. JD Edwards, when it was very young, I was a JD Edwards CNC administrator, so I'm really experienced in that application. But what has really helped me out is, being application centric in my database work has made me become a better database administrator, I think. So let's talk about how we reduce costs with database managed services. And so the first thing is, what is it about data and database administration that's important? Well, you think about your business, data is your life. Your company can't run without the data. You could certainly lose your machines, the technology to run it. As long as you have the data, you have your company. It tells a story about your company's past and its present. And if you do it right with some analytics, it can tell a story about your future. You don't want to lose that, because that's everything. So you got to wonder who is protecting that, and not only how do you protect that. Applications don't work without data. Obviously, you can't just have an application that does nothing. So everything you use from day to day, your mobile games, websites, the applications you use at work, the Zoom, they all have databases behind what they're doing. So why do you need a DBA? And that picture is an actual DBA after the end of a hard day's of work. Like I said, data is your company's life. They don't run themselves. And when I'm talking about a database administrator, and that's what DBA is I'm not talking about like an accidental DBA, the person who is in IT and they just point to him and say, hey, you're going to run the database. I've been in that position before I was a DBA. I know a lot of people do that. And, for the most part, you can probably get through a long period of time as an accidental DBA until something terrible happens. And the main reason why databases crash is because they don't have a database administrator, and that accidental DBA doesn't count, because they're not, a database administrator is watching how things are going. They see things that are the beginnings, they're precursors to problems. They're not, someone who's not a DBA isn't trained or experienced to recognize that. So someone who's not will see that, and the error will go away or the message will go away, and they don't think about it. And they don't realize that that's something that's building up. And as databases grow, they act differently. They need more care and feeding. They need increased resources, changes in resources. You don't want that stuff to sneak up on you. And that's what a database administrator does. It takes care of all that care and feeding on a database. And you don't want to be at the end of a major issue happen, and the person who is in charge of your databases is frantically Googling basic database administration just to get to the point where they know enough to fix the problem that's happening. I'm not saying a disaster will only happen to somebody who's not a DBA. It'll tax even the best person out there, but they have a foundation of database administration and training that allows them to get to the core of it much faster than a normal person. And that's the person you want handling a disaster. So then let's get a little bit more specific into what does a DBA do. And this is going to help you understand what the costs are associated with database administration, and why you would choose a managed service provider over just hiring somebody internally. So there's 5 main things that I've chosen to talk about in monitoring and alerting, maintenance of the database, tuning the performance of the database, which is ongoing, taking care of security, and then overarching business continuity. So database and monitoring and learning. So what tools are you using to monitor your database? The insight into how things are going, whether it's working not, are your jobs running? Is the database actually functioning? Did your backups run? Did they run well? Did they run longer than usual, shorter than usual? Are your statistics being updated, and are they making a difference? Are they being updated often enough? Do you have, what kind of errors and alerts and messages are coming? Do you have some fatal alerts, maybe some high severity ones? And do they make sense in the context of the activity that's happening on your database? Is there if there's drive space left? On Oracle, are your redo logs turning over every 15 minutes? Databases do have a lot of built-in monitoring. SQL Server, you can set up alerts on severe alerts. You can set up some agent alerts for that. You can in Oracle, you could purchase the performance and the performance monitoring pack. That'll cost extra money, and you can get some stuff in there. However, it's a little bit, I don't know, it's pretty basic to get this monitoring alerting just from the database, but it can be done. And a lot of people monitor using scripts from people like Ola Hellengren and Brent Ozar for SQL Server, and a lot of homegrown stuff for Oracle is available. But the key is you have to be watching, and you have to know when things are happening. A managed services company, a company that's very serious about their monitoring alerting will use a very robust monitoring software similar to this here, which is a screen from what we use here at GSI, showing an overview of the availability and some of the alarms that might be happening right at that second, and a snapshot of kind of all the performance happening right now. And each one of them is a drill down into something else. And you can't get this. This doesn't come with a database. This is a third-party tool. The next thing is database maintenance. Maintenance is always ongoing. And I kind of have a Venn diagram there of statistics, indexes, and consistency, meaning database consistency. Now, when I talk about index maintenance, and those of you who have played with databases, or you're involved in development, one of the biggest things people talk about is indexes. Indexes are kind of the go-to, like if there's some kind of performance problem, well, we need an index. A database administrator is really the person who can tell you if an index is going to work, how well it's going to work, and make sure that a recommended index is not going to be a duplicate of another one. But as far as index maintenance goes, in the old days, and even today, a lot of people talk about this, is that index maintenance is rebuilding indexes, because that helps with performance. So you kick off a job that deletes the index and then rebuilds it from scratch. That used to be more of a big deal back in the days when there were spinning disks that were attached locally to your computer. But now with shared SANs and cloud storage and stuff like that, all of that stuff is shared with other data. It can be, and the storage itself usually takes care of any physical fragmentation automatically. So rebuilding indexes is not as big of a maintenance task as it used to be. Nowadays, it's really about, are the indexes that are on the tables on your database, are they appropriate? Are they being used? Are they ever getting read? If they're not, then they don't need to be there, because an index that's not being read actually reduces performance, because it's another write operation to maintain that index. And then with the indexes that do work, what kind of traffic is happening on those indexes? What you want to see is a whole bunch of index seeks, which means that the queries coming in are using that index, and they're using it very efficiently. If you see something like an index scan, that will mean that a query needs an index, but it has to deal with the indexes that are there. So a database administrator is looking at the traffic, making sure that the indexes are appropriate for the workload that you have. Then the next thing is statistics, database table statistics and index statistics. I mentioned that before, that rebuilding indexes is really not that big of a thing, although there are good reasons to rebuild indexes. For example, if you remove a lot of data from a drive, from a table, or there's a huge amount of changes, then you'll rebuild indexes or reorganize them. So not saying that you never rebuild, but it's pretty rare. But what you do get out of an index rebuild is that when you rebuild the indexes, it rebuilds the statistics for that table. And the statistics are very important because the database uses the statistics that are generated to decide how to run a SQL statement in the most efficient manner. And these statistics include many things, not just the index itself, but also how much data is in the table, what is the memory and CPU and all of these things it takes into consideration, and how is it going to run this SQL statement. Those statistics, if they get out of date, the database might not run something very efficiently. So if you have a table that's this big and you built statistics here, but then all of a sudden you add this much more data, well, that data is not included in these statistics. So if something coming to look for the data over here, it may not choose an efficient plan. So making sure statistics are up to date are a big part of this triad of database maintenance. Also, you want your data remaining consistent. And by that, I mean, if something weird happens on your network or with your memory or your storage, it could cause data to get corrupted. And that corruption is, you can see the corruption if you run the database maintenance. What the problem is if you end up having some kind of a disaster or a recovery, you bring that data back and you have parts of it corrupted, you may have difficulties recovering the data. And even if you do recover the data, the application may not start because of the corruption. You want to find that very soon, regularly run this consistency checks. And this is all in addition to regular maintenance. So the center of that Venn diagram is probably what you call regular maintenance. A DBA, even with automation and automatic alerts and cloud databases and autonomous databases, there's still regular maintenance that have to be done. Every day you kind of want to touch it and make sure that it's all working well. Look for any outlying stuff. Every week there's tasks like making sure that all your backups are running correctly. Did your full backup run on Friday? Did the backup take so long that it ran into morning processing? Monthly, you're going to be checking for stuff like is security up to date, and yearly is testing your backups and restoring those to somewhere. So database maintenance is a big deal that humans need to do. Next thing is performance tuning. Basically, what do you see the database is doing? And this kind of seems, it goes hand in hand with the database maintenance, especially with indexes, but tuning is also an ongoing thing. Humans are not consistent. If they're going through an application that is that kind of funnels all of the queries into a certain format, and the application knows where all these indexes are and knows exactly what it needs to do, you can see pretty even performance. But when you start introducing a reporting tool, or you have people who can change how things are queried, they often don't pick indexes. They don't make the query that efficient. If you have this a third-party reporting tool, those often don't really care how many joins and things that you add into a query. It's just going to return data the way that you want it. And on the database side, the database administrator's got to kind of be looking at that and watching for outlying things. So if you see this little graph right here, I actually took this morning from one of my clients, and you can see that little pink line in there of some weight types. So a DBA would see that, they'd focus in on it and try to see what is it that's causing this problem. Is it a missing index? And does this query happen all the time? Is that window of time, was that query run 1,000 times or just once? And try to decide what's the best way to make this a lot faster. The performance tuning, I would say that, if you have a lot of databases to manage, you probably want to have that performance chart open, because watching performance, not just tuning, but watching performance, you can watch things kind of gradually build up and get worse and worse, and act on them before they become a problem. And now we're getting up into the more important parts of database administration, and one of them really important ones is database security. And there's all sorts of security to worry about, starting with user security. A database administrator has got to make sure that users don't have too much authority. So you want to have what's called, least privilege, minimum authority. You give people only what they need and no more. And some clients, our new clients, we find there's a lot of sysadmin proliferation. People don't understand how security works that well, so they just give everybody full control over everything, and that's not good. Let's just say it that way. Also, database security involves data security specifically, and this is things like it gets into like reliability, like data backups and protecting against ransomware, encryption, and things that prevent people from seeing your data if they do get access to your data files. Auditing, that you may have sensitive files, tables inside your database where you want to know if anybody changes anything in there, like something that might have social security numbers or security information for your database itself. Anytime someone with a super user credential, you want to audit that. And a database administrator needs to see that, so that if there is some kind of security anomaly or a breach, they can act on it as quickly as possible, and make sure that nobody's sneaking into little administrative backdoors, which happens a lot. Part of database security is continuous education and research. You have to be aware that new security vulnerabilities are coming out. Database companies often release critical patches that update these and close these loopholes. And if you're staying up on that, then these are not going to pass you by, and you're not going to miss a patch and then suddenly get hacked or whatever because you weren't paying attention to the patches that were coming out. Database recovery is a big deal in security, because you still can get hacked even if you are the most prepared person in the world. And your pre-planning for security will make a big difference in how you recover from an incident. Like, for example, just use ransomware. Your database, maybe you have encryption and you have least privilege and all of this stuff, but somehow something out of your control, like somebody gets onto your network and the network team is not doing their job, or they phish somebody's credentials and they get access to your stuff. And then they encrypt all your data. Even if it's already encrypted, they just encrypt on top of that. Now you have no access to your data. But if you were smart, you had a ransomware plan, and you had a immutable backup stored somewhere, you can immediately lock everybody out, restore your immutable backup, and you're ready to go, because you were serious about security. You secured a copy of that data so that no one could touch it, and now you're safe. And then another thing that you want your DBA to do is maintain business continuity. And that security I talked about, the ransomware, that's all part of it. You want your data to always be available when you want it. You want it to be recoverable as quickly as possible whenever you need it. And you also need to establish how much flexibility you have in that area. And this is defined by recovery point objective and recovery time objective. So that a database administrator will take the RPO and RTO, and they will in some cases architect the solution, but they'll also set up backups and all of that stuff to match this RPO RTO. So recovery point objective is, if something fails, how much data can you afford to lose? And recovery time is, how long will it take for you to make the system available again? And obviously everyone's first reaction is zero. I want zero time lost and zero data lost. But unfortunately, that's really hard to do. As you approach a zero RPO RTO, it gets quite expensive. It's kind of like going to the speed of light. The speed of light, as you go faster and faster, the energy required to go that fast reaches infinity, and you never actually reach the speed of light. It's impossible. Same thing with zero downtime. It's not possible. There will be downtime. You just want to minimize it as much as possible. Now you'll find companies that will have they won't have a problem losing an hour's worth of data because they can recreate that from people are taking notes somewhere, or it's just okay. And their recovering time, like how long can they be down? It really depends. At 5 o'clock, when everybody's gone home for the day in a small company that only works 8 to 5, well, the recovery time can be from 5 p.m. till 8 a.m. 12, 16 hours. But if you're a 24/7 company that works all around the world where nothing stops, you want your recovery time to be very, very short, 5 minutes, 0 minutes. And it is possible to engineer systems to where the downtime is extremely short. Now the DBA doesn't decide that, the business decides that. So if your supervisors or the company says that we literally cannot be down for 2 seconds, the DBA will make sure that happens. That'll require a bunch of servers and a lot of storage and a lot of CPU and memory, but it's possible. And they have to, and the more complex it gets, database administrator has to manage all of those little moving parts. Now, if you've been thinking about or learning about databases a lot lately, you'll have heard about autonomous database, especially Oracle's autonomous database. And it's a fully managed self-driving database that can take care of everything. It says it can take care of everything that a DBA can do. All of the provisioning of resources, it secures itself, it's automatically encrypting, it manages itself, it takes care of all the backup plans and stuff. If there's an issue, like you have a problem, it will fix that. If you get to month end and you need more CPU and more memory, it adds that automatically. And the indexes, I mentioned before about watching indexes, making sure statistics are up to date. Autonomous database is supposed to do that too. And Oracle Autonomous Database is built off of a lot of old technologies that they've kind of brought together into one thing, and is now selling it as autonomous. But even with autonomous, there are still things a DBA can do, because what a autonomous database can't do is there are different kinds of workloads that it may be able to fix after the fact, that it won't be able to catch up with right away. There are some commands and things that can only be run by a human. Recovering the database is still a human involved task. If someone goes in and encrypts your database or steals your data, you still need somebody to get to do that. And then when you have application and developers coming to you saying, what is the most efficient way to run this on the database? And they don't know how the database works, and they don't know the indexes or anything like that. You still need to say, hey, you know what, here's your indexes. If you conform it to that, you'll be fine. The database is going to take everything that you throw at it and try to make it work. And what you throw at it has to be efficient too. And right now, only humans can figure that out. Maybe ChatGPT 3 or version 4 will be able to do that better. But for now, autonomous databases still need thought put into how the data is being used and how the application and the people need to bring that back. So who will you choose? Now that you know all of the things that need to be done You don't know everything. I didn't just turn everybody into DBAs magically, but who do you choose to run your database? So I've boiled it down to three options. You hire someone to work directly for your company. You contract with an independent resource, independent DBA. And that's not what all independent DBAs look like. I just thought that was funny. Or you partner with a managed services company. So let's have a scenario. Here's your company is you're a large company with a financial application that you need someone to manage. It's running on a SQL Server database. There's only 25 people that use it on a day-to-day basis, just the people in the finance department, some executives. There's a lot of nightly and weekend reporting and updates. It's a big company, so they have a lot of checks to cash, and there's lots of credit approvals, accounts payable, accounts receivable, and fixed assets, and all these things it's got to manage. But it's being done by a small team, but it's a lot of data that's going through. And at month end, the activity increases quite a bit for a short period of time. And of course, they're running a best practice system. They have production, QA, and development so that they can test out their changes and stuff, but they put it all on one server. It's just a single SQL server where they have all three environments. Obviously, and best practice is to have those all separate so your non-prod doesn't affect production. But this is just a scenario. Now, even though they have a lot of financial activity going on, it's a very stable system, very steady activity. Not a lot of things change day to day. There are some outlying stuff. There are tickets. People need some SQL statements run to change some data. There's occasionally, there might be an outage. But in all told, it's about 20 hours a week of work. And that includes, overnights and weekends. So let's hire somebody. We're going to hire a SQL Server DBA, one person to manage this 24/7 operation. So the average SQL Server DBA salary, according to ZipRecruiter, is $105,000 a year. And I figured 20% is benefits, so added on $20,000 for that. So $125,000 a year for this database. And so they work Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, but they're on call 24/7. Now, the great thing is they're a dedicated team member, right? They work for you. They're part of the family. They come to the company barbecues or not if you're on all remote. And there they are. They're your DBA and they know everything about it. Of course, average salary, you got an average DBA, right? So you have an average DBA, which, not all DBAs are made the same. And they're working for you and taking care of your system. So what if something happens? Can they go on vacation? Can they get sick? What happens when they do that? If they're gone, that's when things happen. In my experience, as soon as the DBA walks out the door, as soon as they go on vacation, they get sick, that's when something crashes, and that's when you need them the most. And if it's just one of them, then they have to take their laptop with them on vacation all the time, or they can never get sick. But what if even worse, something than that happens? They get hit by a bus, or they go blind or something. Who knows? You don't have anyone to back you up. All of a sudden, you go from fully staffed DBA to no DBAs at all, and you have a crisis or a potential crisis on your hand. How does a company take care of that? Well, they hire a less expensive DBA, like a junior DBA. So people like this are usually good enough to handle the small stuff. I figure 80,000 a year with benefits will get you a very, very junior DBA who can be mentored into that position. I would say that you'll want to raise their salary really quick if you can find somebody for that price. That's pretty cheap. And this is just SQL Server, by the way. So that way, if this person goes on vacation, you've got somebody there who at least knows what a database is. They can spell DBA, plus they can run a scripted procedure. They may not need to know all the ins and outs of how stuff works, but at least they're qualified and they understand how the thing works, and they can follow all the written stuff that was created by your primary DBA. But what about weekends and evenings? After a while, as your company grows, there's going to be more work in the evening. There's going to be more work on the weekend. There's scheduled stuff. There's patching and maybe upgrades and other things that can't be done during business hours. So you hire some offshore resources. I'm pretty sure that's what offshore resources look like. Not exactly sure, but you get one person overnight, one person on the weekend, just to do 2 days on the weekend, and then negotiate with your offshore resource to take care of all the on-call activity. So they're the first person that answers the phone and triages it and hopefully doesn't call you. I figure that'd be about 10,000 a month based on what I know. You can get you can get 2 really good DBAs that are offshore who have good technical knowledge that will work overnight for you for about that. Then now we put all this money together. So in order for you to be illness and vacation proof, sort of, have somebody who will manage stuff overnight on the weekend because you have 24/7 reporting going, and then cover weekend work because you don't want to burn out your DBAs. Now you're sitting at $225,000 a year for 20 hours of work a week because you can't afford to be down. You can't afford to not have those people there. Now, this is just one SQL server. If you have multiple SQL servers or a much larger system or 20 or 100, you're going to have multiple employees, and having coverage of, with multiple employees of a lot of servers is a lot easier to do. But what if you have a different platform, like you have an Oracle database and SQL Server, and your Oracle database is like a very important data warehouse where you do all of your analytics on it. I have multiple clients that have different database platforms, and you need an expert for each one. A SQL Server DBA is not going to know how to be an Oracle DBA unless they're super special like me. They're not going to know enough about the other platform to be an effective person on it. So you're going to have full workloads on 2 different databases, which means you need 2 primary DBAs. Then you need another junior DBA to give them vacation illness proof, and then their own resources overnight. So Oracle DBAs are more expensive than SQL Server DBAs. So you're looking at hitting $500,000 a year if you had one SQL Server and one Oracle database. Expanding out from there, it gets a lot more and more expensive. So, all right, you don't have this. The numbers are not making sense to hire a single employee if you want 24/7 coverage and availability. So maybe you think, I'm going to hire an independent contractor because they have no life, they'll work all the time. Problem is that they can be really, really expensive. Independent contractors, in my experience, are $250 to $300 an hour or more. They want you to pay a minimum amount of hours a month, and they have really long lead times because they're also someone else's independent contractor. They may have 10 different clients that they handle, and if you call in while they're doing a production down for someone else, well, you got to wait for that. So there are some independent contractors who say they need a 2-week lead time just to schedule a meeting. You want to run a SQL statement, it's 24 hours at minimum. They're not vacation or illness proof. They're still just one person. They don't have a team of people. They're doing this on their own. And so you're going to actually be paying more for this independent contractor than you would by hiring a whole team of people yourself. So then here we get to hire a managed services provider. And I'm speaking mostly for our company, but there are multiple database remote managed services providers out there. They all have their own way of doing things, but they often kind of fit into the same level of stuff. So for managed services provider, and these are just estimates, you pay a fixed fee. And in a fixed fee, you say, I want 24/7 monitoring. I want you to be available 24/7. And during business hours, if I open a ticket, I want you to work on it within a certain SLA, like 30 minutes or 2 hours, depending on what the severity is. You get vacation and illness coverage because that MSP has got multiple DBAs. You have 5 SQL Server DBAs and 5 Oracle DBAs, and then you have someone who does MySQL and another one who does PostgreSQL, and all of these people that they can draw from. And in the case of our company, we also have infrastructure support, cloud support, and all of these other ancillary knowledge and skills that we can draw on to manage the database. And there's many more things that you can get, which I'll cover in just a moment. And for the example that I showed you, to have this 24/7 availability with no worrying about benefits is about 190,000 a year is what I was figuring. It might be a little bit less. This is all kind of back of the napkin calculations I was doing on the scenario, but you can see that it's a lot less, and then you don't have to worry about it because someone else is taking care of making sure that your backups are happening, that your ransomware protection is in place, that your encryption is working, performance is constantly being updated. You send them your database tickets, they do them and let you know that they're done. Some other benefits are that, which I didn't even cover these costs, ongoing training and certification. There's new versions of the database coming out, advanced features, and just general knowledge of new performance techniques and things like that you as a company have to figure out. Now, it's okay if you have a database that sits there for years and you never upgrade it, but one day your SQL 2008 R2 database is not going to be supported anymore. So now you have to upgrade. And the person that you hired never learned anything beyond SQL 2008. So now they don't know any of the new features. They don't know how to upgrade it. They haven't gotten any extra education unless you paid for them to do that. So if you want to get a major certification every year, that's going to cost $3,000 to $5,000. And they may have to be gone for a week to take a boot camp to get that. Plus, you're going to spend money education subscription with somebody like Brett Ozar for SQL Server, or a Udemy or Pluralsight subscription, so that they can get their constant annual training, and that could be $500 to $1,000 a year just for that, which you don't have to worry about with an MSP because they're doing all that. They're doing all that training and certification, and in addition, an MSP sees things weekly, monthly, daily that a company DBA may never see, like the picture, everything's on fire. For an MSP, that's Tuesday, because we have so many clients that the chances of us seeing something new and unusual is much higher than anywhere else. Plus, because we see so much, we are prepared for all of these scenarios that somebody behind their desk may never experience, or maybe once experience it right before they get fired and they're walking out the door because they didn't anticipate that problem. Not only that, if you have to upgrade a database, using the example of the 2008, somebody's been running on that database for 10 years. Do they know how to upgrade a database? They've never done it. They know that upgrades happen, but they've never actually hands to keyboard performed an upgrade. We do upgrades all the time. There's also advanced architectures like availability groups and data guard on Oracle side, and other things that for a company DBA, that is a huge project that may come literally once in their lifetime. But we do these all the time, and we manage them all the time, so we're always up to date on the latest stuff. Disasters, which we always hate disasters, they still happen even as prepared as you are. But when you do disaster recovery tests and training all the time, when a disaster does happen, you just know that it's going to go. And we do annual full disaster recovery tests for every one of our clients, and that means we're doing them every couple of weeks because we have so many clients. So we are always up to date on that. And then ransomware, I keep talking about that, but experience with ransomware is protecting against ransomware is something you can do easily, but recovering from a ransomware attack, that's difficult and scary. And fortunately for us, none of the ransomware attacks that we've assisted companies with have been as a result of anything that we've done wrong. But even when it's not your fault, even when you've done everything correct, the stress and intensity of recovering from a ransomware attack is not something you can teach. You have to experience it. And having somebody available who, in the event that something does happen, can help you get through that is invaluable. And with all of this training and certification and all of this experience with rare and complex stuff, we also keep up with the latest technologies as part of doing that, but also because our clients, some want to have the latest stuff, or maybe they need the latest technology because they've got some new functionality, or they're buying some whole other company and they're going global and they need to suddenly expand their stuff. We see that all the time. If this happens suddenly to a DBA working at a company, it could be a huge surprise. And companies will either hire out another company to help them with the upgrade, or they'll realize that they've been wasting their money on this person and then just hire that company anyway. So now you know why you need an MSP, why that's so important. Why would you pick GSI instead of all the other database managed services companies out there? Well, there's three main things, but there's a lot that we provide. Is that we're all experienced and we're all certified. We all have major certifications in our specific database. Everyone who's a SQL Server admin on my team is all certified. Oracle has all Oracle certifications. I have certifications in both of those and other ones too, just because I just love certifications, I guess. Every one of my DBAs is a senior DBA. They can handle any architecture in any situation. And it could be, you could have servers at your company. They could be in the cloud. It could be hybrid cloud, multi-cloud, whatever it is. We are already doing all of that. We also do other things besides manage databases. We do data analytics, data science. We help people because of doing a lot of performance tuning on individual SQL statements. We have a deep understanding of how SQL runs, how databases interact with different types of queries. Because we're application focused, the overarching, the original focus of GSI many years ago was with the JD Edwards application. And being a DBA who started working on the JD Edwards application, you become very application focused. All of the performance of the application puts fingerprints on the database, and doesn't matter what application it is, but if things are running slow, it may not be the database's fault. It could be something on the application. The database you can always kind of figure out how the application is doing its thing by how it does stuff on the database. So it's almost like you can tell what's happening anywhere in your infrastructure by looking at the database. And because we've been so application focused, our team is not the kind of DBA that says, well, database looks great, I don't know what your problem is, and then close the ticket and you're done. There is a reason why things are running slow, and we don't let that reason just fly away. If we see an issue, if an alert pops up, the alert popped up for a reason. Users are complaining about slowness for a reason, and the database may look great, but we can sure help them out and try to figure out what the problem is. And plus, GSI has 100% 100% guarantee. If you're not satisfied, if things just really suck, you get your money back. If I spend 10 hours working on some project or trying to fix some problem, and you're like, well, you know what, Bill caused that problem, so I don't think I should have to pay for that. GSI gives your money back on that. So that's pretty cool. Now, if you're going to come to GSI, there's another great thing about coming to us, and a lot of MSPs do this too. I'm not going to say we're the only ones that do it, but we probably do it better, I'm sure. When you're coming to GSI, we do an onboarding meeting where we introduce everybody. We get a kind of a feel for how your company is going, what kind of activity it has, your tickets, your pain points, and try to figure out exactly what you want. And we talk about RPO, RTO, What are your expectations? What kind of SLAs do you want? And then we get you incorporated in our ticketing system, in our emails and all of our alerting and stuff that we do. Any procedures and things that you already have documented, we bring those in, and then we incorporate that into our own documentation, our internal run books. Then once that starts flowing in, we're also doing a transition planning engagement where we go in and do a deep dive on all of your databases, find out everything about them. We dive into every configuration, every performance metric, performance on the server level, at the application level, reliability, security, monitoring, your database jobs, store procedures, things like that. Analyze all of that to try to find out where the opportunities are. So a lot of companies that we onboard at first, they need to be brought up to a baseline of configuration before you can really get into specific performance stuff. And all of these things, the transition planning engagement, that is a deliverable to you with all the details of everything that was looked at and all the recommendations. Plus you get a list of, this is how we recommend you implement these fixes and how long it's going to take. And we give you architecture diagrams that we've created, and all of that stuff comes back to you. And for other benefits of our solution, I'm not going to make you read all that. It's probably really small text. We do have, because we support so many different things besides database, we have client success managers who are interface between you and the database team. And if you need something else, you need development, you need application stuff, HubSpot or NetSuite or anything like that, they can bring that stuff in. We have SLAs for everything. I mentioned the TPE. We use our monitoring system called Foglight. We've got system down support 24/7. There's someone always there to answer the phone. There's quarterly meetings, weekly meetings with CSM and the team, so we're always staying in touch. We like to think of ourselves as an extension of your company, as your, not your employees, but like partners in what we're doing. We take it very seriously that we want your systems to run really well. Our rates are generally blended, so if we ever got a lower, like a junior DBA and a higher DBA, those rates are usually blended in. And it's more for the rest of our company, because there's, on the JDE side, there's a lot of scale of people on there. And we mainly we're focusing on making sure your system is available, your data is available, everything's running fast. And when it's not, we take that personally. We want to make sure that it's going well. And to make sure we cover all that, we have our ticketing system is through ServiceNow. And so if your company uses ServiceNow, we can integrate those and make them talk to each other really, really well. And now with that, I'm going to turn this back over to Mike.
Wonderful.
And stop sharing.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, I can share really just to the send back to my desktop. Can't find it's not showing up the PowerPoint, but the really here we go. We really already we're pretty much have reached the end. I do have a question. Something you brought up about the people behind the database solution, and you talked a little bit about what type of people. I mean, one overarching or big question is: are you really, when you're looking for expertise, whether it's internal or external, are you looking for people who can run it well as it usually should be, or are you really trying to hire for people when stuff does happen that you don't plan? Because there's lots of people out there, you hear a lot of times about the industry, and now's the time to get into it, and kids may be heading into technology and database related stuff. I mean, experience, what I'm trying to say is experience, I would think, is just as important as the certifications you have. What should people be looking for, whether they're hiring internally or externally, what are some, you know, what are some expertise that may not always show up on a resume or even on a, on a brochure about an outsourced provider that people need to have when you hire them, either externally or internally?
Yeah, so even though I have a laundry list of certifications and I have to include a pamphlet with my email signature, I don't think certifications are a good indication of somebody's aptitude or ability, because
Mhm.
anyone can go take a database boot camp and in 10 days have a certification in whatever they want. And that looks really good on paper. What I'm looking for is people with practical hands-on experience. Uh, and not just that, but also the aptitude. If I'm going to hire a junior DBA who has really no experience with databases, they have to have, troubleshooting is my biggest thing. Can they troubleshoot?
Mhm.
And they get out of a paper bag without help, right?
Yeah.
If they can't do that, uh, if somebody can't troubleshoot, that means they just don't really understand how stuff works. But if they can troubleshoot their way out of something they do understand, then that tells me that they try to understand how things work, and that um, they're not just going to move on to the next thing if they don't see an error. So, the troubleshooting skills, number one. I look for people who, people aren't specific project managers, but my DBAs are like mini project managers. If they're working a client where they're like the subject matter expert for them, they manage that stuff and they keep a better eye on that. If any one of our DBAs has a um, like a major issue comes in, they are the project manager for that issue. Like production down, they stick with it, they coordinate it, make sure that it's resolved, and then they make sure they put in a root cause analysis that finds the problem and determines how to prevent it from happening in the future. So
Mhm.
um, and I think in addition to, I want to see a breadth of experience. There's a lot of people I interview who have been working for a company, but they've only been doing this one aspect. Like they've only been doing backups, or they've only been managing this one part of the application. So I want people who have touched everything, um, but more than that, I don't want a jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah.
If I hire a SQL Server DBA, they need to be able to hit the ground running and architect and implement a SQL Server availability group solution. Um, and so yeah, we have. I look for very, very special people with lots of knowledge, skills, and abilities that can hit the ground running in anything that gets thrown at them, even if they don't know it. If that's where it
Yeah.
comes in, you understand the software well enough to wade through something and figure it out.
Well, I'm going to appreciate, I just want to say I want to appreciate your time, Bill. And we really appreciate those who have attended. We would like to invite you to stop by our website where we have more educational resources. As Bill said, we have a lot of different software platforms and a team of great people behind them, as well as webcast newsletters. Bill has a couple other database related presentations he's made on our YouTube channel, and in the playlist you can easily find them. So really, if I did place you have a chance to win a $25 gift card if you take the survey, and I placed that in the chat, that link in the chat. So the $25 Amazon gift card for the survey. So you're welcome to take that. And really, that is pretty much it. This webcast, if you know someone you like to share it with, or like, uh, or you think should attend it in the future, we're gonna have this. This has been recorded, and we'll make sure to have it on our YouTube page by the end of the week. So we will get that recording out to those in attendance, and we encourage you to share with your friends. Any last thoughts, Bill? Just anything, maybe heading into the new year, anything on the horizon here, and with the 2 minutes we have in 2023 that might be as far as on your radar, or as far as what the industry is looking at?
Well, the big thing is protecting against ransomware, and
Yeah,
security. A lot of companies are really lax with security. They don't think it's going to happen to them until it does. And if people need to focus on security and encryption, ransomware, and make sure that they've got that, because that would kill the company if they don't. As far as new technologies, I think we're seeing a uh, a whole new world about to happen with AI. That
yeah,
right now I say autonomous database still needs a human, but 6 months from now, what's changing in AI? So one of the skill sets that I see people needing is how to tell the AI, um, in a proper manner to get the results back from it that you need. It's kind of like
yeah.
having Google Foo, except now it's with an AI. So
Mhm.
that's what I
Yeah,
see.
even in the marketing world, you could take these tests now, uh, and a virtual presenter will read the text. The problem is it doesn't always, pronounce it right. So I'm going back into the script and purposefully making a word sound phonetically like it is, as opposed to, my whole life I've been worried about spelling,
Yeah.
but for it to sound like, so there, I think we do see, how do you interact with an AI is probably across the whole industry. We're just any industry we're dealing with. So thanks again, everybody, for joining us. We'll wrap it up with that. Bill, thanks again, and I hope you all have a great rest of the week and rest of the month.